A warm welcome to all of you to the panel on how to fund your individual research. This is Laila Abu from the Marian Tagore International Center for Advanced Studies, Metamorphoses of the Political, in short, ICAS&P. There's certainly a lot to say about Indo-German funding opportunities for individuals, but the time we have today is quite limited, especially since we would like to give sufficient time for the questions of the audience. That is why we will refrain from introducing funding possibilities in great detail, but rather explore different options through internal Q&A sessions at the beginning. And then we will open up the floor for your queries. Please do visit the booth. Please do engage with the booth staff in the virtual fair and the networking lounge, where you will be able to retrieve more information and all of the funding programs we present here, and also those of the other institutions represented here at this event. Let us start right away with an introduction of the panelists and a brief statement on their funding programs. I will first introduce Dr. Katja Lasch. I'm delighted that we have the host of this event in our panel today. Katja Lasch has a double passport in India. In this panel, she speaks as director of the Regional German Academic Exchange, DAAD office in Delhi, a post that she holds since October last year. Simultaneously, she acts as director of the German Center for Research and Innovation, so the DWIH, and is responsible for its strategic management. Prior to her work in India, she headed the DAAD's International Research Marketing Division at the head office in Bonn and the DAAD Information Center in Bucharest, Romania. Previously, she has also worked in the International Cultural Exchange. Her professional focus and interests lie in the field of international, university and research cooperation, as well as entrepreneurship. Katja Lasch holds a PhD in history. She has studied Eastern European history, political science, and Romanian linguistics, and is also qualified in business administration. Dr. Lasch, can you please tell us a bit about the main foci of DAAD funding?
Leila, thanks for the kind introduction. I just arrived from the other panel. So the main focus of the DAAD individual funding, as this panel we are discussing the individual funding, I would like to mention that the DAAD is focusing on master and PhD scholarships. We also offer smaller funding programs for postdoc and senior scientists, but it's left to other organizations. And I just want to mention our flagship program, the PhD program. So the DAAD is funding each year up to 30 full PhDs into Germany. And the specialty of the DAAD is that you can choose your subject. So you can come from whatever field you want, be it engineering, but also social sciences and humanities. And you can choose the institution you want to go. So I would say that's the unique selling point of the DAAD. So a quite flexible program offering the opportunity to do a PhD. We are also having smaller programs, specialized programs in the level of master. I will not tackle these programs in detail here. Please go to our booth, but I also want to mention in our PhD program, there is also the opportunity to go for a research stay for a year abroad if you're doing your PhD in Germany. But that would be the main focus in the individual funding lines of the DAAD. There's a lot of other things we are doing also for students. Check out our website, but the main focus in India in the DAAD funding schemes is master scholarships and PhD scholarships.
Yes, and with that, it goes back to me, and I would like you to join me in welcoming Professor Dastagiri Reddy. He's an associate professor at the Department of Chemistry at Pondicherry University. His research interests are main group metal-based homogeneous catalysis, especially the production of biodegradable polymers. He also works on organometallic chemistry of main group elements and the design and synthesis of transition metal-based homogeneous catalysts for Suzuki-Miyaura cross-coupling reactions in neat water and polymerization of polar olefins. Professor Reddy conducted parts of his postdoctoral research at Purdue and Lehigh University, USA, at the University of Calgary, Canada, And today, Professor Reddy speaks mainly as alumni of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, which awarded him a fellowship in Göttingen, at Göttingen University for 2 years. Professor Reddy, would you enlighten us briefly about the major pillars of funding through the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lailan. And it's my pleasure to talk a few words about Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. It's really a great institution which funds the individual research, especially after PhD. So once a research scholar is there in the third year or fourth year or at the end of the research program, then mostly as a research scholar, I too was very much interested in doing my own research at the end of my, almost at the end of my research program as a PhD. So then, then I needed to look for the individual funds, the individual funding programs. So then I found this Alexander von Humboldt Foundation Research Fellowship is the best fellowship. And it's not only good in terms of funding, but also actually it's prestigious. So therefore I chose, soon after I obtained my PhD from IIT Kanpur, and I applied to Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung, and I wrote a project basically. Applied means you need to write a project in collaboration with the host that you need to find out first from Germany. That you need to decide in which subject you're going to, in which topic you're going to do your research, and then you should collaborate with. You should find your host in Germany, and then you can talk to him and you can communicate with him and mutually agreed project proposal that you're going to write, and then you ask, you apply to the Humboldt Foundation. Basically, it takes about 4 to 6 months, or sometimes it may take around 7, 8 months also for your application to be processed. So therefore, you need to be patient. And you need to probably little ahead. You can write a project and then apply for it. And yes, and the Humboldt Foundation gives a good amount of money for your stay in Germany, and you also will not become a burden to your host because you're doing. In terms of your research, because Humboldt Foundation also funds your research, and that goes to the host. So the host provides you the infrastructure, chemicals, glassware. I'm a chemist, so therefore I'm talking about chemicals and glassware. For others, for other infrastructure and then other consumables and all will be provided by the host. It's really a wonderful program. You don't have to spend any money for your research, and all will be given by the Humboldt Foundation. So this is mainly after PhD. And even, this is not just, it doesn't end with your research stay in Germany. Even after that, it will continue. Even now, actually, I go to Germany. I visit Germany for doing short-term research for 3 months during the summer programs, during the summertime. And this, will continue until you are, you end your career. So it is like, I probably, after I joined Pondicherry University, I think I visited Germany at least for 6 times. So every time Humboldt sponsors, it's really good for me to keep this collaboration going. And, and also one more wonderful thing is, to countries which have limited resources, the Humboldt Foundation also provides a good amount of money for buying certain equipment when you start your individual research at any institute in India. Like, for example, if I joined in Pondicherry University, Humboldt Foundation donated a glove box. Basically, it gave me 20,000 euro for my research. So I bought a glove box for that one. So if you also want to buy anything once you start your research here, nowadays, the Indian government, the Indian institutions are also giving good amount of money to start your research. But in addition to that, you can get this funding from the Humboldt also. So it's basically a wonderful program. All you have to do is actually, if you are doing research and then try doing hard work and get good publication, and then you can apply for this prestigious fellowship. And in fact, that is the mantra basically, that doing good research and getting good publication, and then write a very good project proposal, and you don't have to mention about the money part and all the things. What you're worried about is your technical part, and in what time you're going to do, how long. Your research plan, time plan. Only those things you need to write. And anyway, if you have any doubts, you go to this website, Humboldt. You can type in Google Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, and certainly it will take you to the website. Otherwise, avh.de, that also take you to that website. And then there are so many programs. And don't be confused. If you are doing PhD and then you want to do a postdoc, that is the best fellowship for you is Alexander von Humboldt Research Fellowship. And there will be a lot of drop-down menus, and then choose your current position as postdoc. Though you're doing PhD, it's okay, but you choose that one as a postdoc, and then it will guide you through the programs what they have. But the most suitable program for you is actually the Alexander von Humboldt Research Fellowship. But if you're already an assistant professor or associate professor, there are so many other programs. If you're, of course, an alumni already, there are programs which sponsor alumni. Alexander von Humboldt Foundation alumni. Okay, Dr. Laila, I think I should not take much time, and then I invite questions from the participants from here. Thank you.
Many thanks to you, Professor Reddy. I would like to introduce Dr. Kapil Ahuja now. We are very happy to have him on board. With a master's and PhD degrees in mathematics and computer science from Virginia Tech, Dr. Ahuja has a strong interdisciplinary focus. After graduating from Virginia Tech, he received his postdoctoral training from the Max Planck Institute in Magdeburg. Since then, he has established his independent research program in mathematics of data science at the IIT Indore, where he's currently working as an associate professor. In the recent past, he also held visiting professor positions at the TU Braunschweig, TU Dresden, and Sandia National Labs. Dr. Ahuja's core research interests are in artificial intelligence, machine learning, numerical methods, and optimization. Dr. Ahuja has received the Best Teacher Award 4 times at IIT Indore, and administratively, since past 3 years, he is heading international affairs at IIT Indore and is the founding dean. Its founding dean. Dr. Ahuja was invited today as alumni of several German universities. He will be able to tell you about the advantages and conditions of conducting research in Germany in his field, and he's also well-versed in transnational research collaboration. Dr. Ahuja, may I ask why you chose Germany for your postdoctoral research?
Hey, Dr. Laila. So many thanks for that kind introduction. So of course, Germany, when we were growing up in Germany, Germany was known for engineering. And, I got an opportunity to visit Germany for a software project early on in my career before I went to US for my graduate studies. And, I realized that the way the Germans were doing research, whether it was deep research or they were doing precision engineering, especially in mathematics and mechanical engineering, the areas I was most interested in, that's what attracted me to Germany. Of course, US had the attraction of education. So I finished my graduate studies there. And I thought, why not, have the German expertise also with me? And that's how I applied for a postdoc at Germany at the Max Planck. In terms of the ground reality in Germany, if you see, besides the excellent universities in terms of TU9s and the Max Planck Institutes, which are, very research focused, you also have the Fraunhofer Institutes, which help you translate all this research to industry. And this whole network of institutes works very well. And that is something which got me really excited. And, before I went to Germany for a postdoc, I was apprehensive about not knowing German because I didn't knew at that point of time. And I thought it may be an handicap. But the ground reality was very different. Most of the youngsters know English, and my colleagues at the Max Planck and all across my visits to Dresden, Braunschweig, Hanover, Berlin, Magdeburg, I realized they were always there to help. And so this turned out to be an excellent collaboration. And if you see my profile now, I'm in fact working with Germans more than I'm working with Americans, where I got my education. So so it worked really well. So I'm going to stop there so that not take too much of time. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Ahuja. Our last panelist today is Dr. Praveen Kumar Somasundaram, who secured his PhD in physics on magnetic materials. He's closely involved in the establishment of the Science and Engineering Research Board, SERB, a statutory body of the Department of Science and Technology. Currently, he's responsible for implementing overseas programs for doctoral, postdoctoral, and visiting doctoral fellowships of the SARB and for the National Postdoctoral Fellowship Program. He's instrumental in building partnerships with top-ranking universities across the globe. His latest responsibility is implementing the Vajra faculty scheme to bring international research and development expertise to the Indian ecosystem. Two of his recent contributions were the launch of two schemes, namely SERB Supra and SERB Power. And I would kindly request Dr. Somasundaram to summarize these funding schemes briefly.
Good afternoon for participants from India, and good morning to the German participants. Thank you. First of all, happy Indo-German Research Day. Very brief on SERB, the Science and Engineering Research Board of the Department of Science and Technology had been established as a statutory body with a mission to raise the quality of and the footprint of Indian science and engineering. SERB funds individual research, high priority research, network research, centers of excellence, and of course fellowships ranging from postdocs to senior scientist fellowships, and women specific, we call it power fellowships. And we used to say that SERB is for making good ideas work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Somasundaram. Before we now continue with the Q&A session, I would like to take the liberty and also say a couple of words about myself and the institutions I'm working for. Like Dr. Lasch, I went into science administration after my PhD. I graduated from Heidelberg at University. I'm an anthropologist by training, and for 8 years, I worked for the DFG-funded Cluster of Excellence, Asia and Europe in a global context. I also coordinated a comparative research project on gendered identities in Delhi and Shanghai, funded by the joint research body of the European Union, titled HERA, Humanities in the European Research Area. Since 3 years, I'm employed by the Max Weber Stiftung, Foundation German Humanities Institutes Abroad, and work for the foundation in Delhi. The MWS runs well-known German research institutions such as the German Historical Institute in London, Paris, Washington, and the Orion Institutes in Istanbul and Tokyo, just to name a few. In 2014, the MWS opened an India branch office called the MWS IBO. The goal of the IBO is to help build research contacts and collaborations between Indian, German, and internationally humanities and social science research through various projects, conferences, workshops, lectures, and related forms of research activity. I have the pleasure to publicly announce today that the MWS Governing Board decided this year that the IBO will expand its activities in India. As I said in the beginning, I'm the head of administration to the Marian Tagore International Center for Advanced Studies, Metamorphoses of the Political, in short, ICSMP. We are based in New Delhi, and as our consortium coordinator, the MWS provides us the administrative platform to run our project. We are a consortium of 6 German and Indian institutions, and we're funded by the BMBF, the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. And we are promoting international exchange, bilateral and multilateral exchange in the humanities and social sciences. At the core of our work is an interdisciplinary fellowship program for outstanding senior and postdoctoral researchers working on the metamorphoses of the political in the long 20th century. Please do visit our joint booth to learn more about ICSMP, our fellowships, and of course, the MWS IBO and the Max Weber Stiftung itself. Feel free to interact with me, pose questions, and also with the Tanja Bansal, the other booth staff who is there. But now, sorry for taking that much time out for myself. But now again, let's turn to the other panelists, and I would like to start again with Mr. Ahuja. Dr. Ahuja, can you please tell me something about the application process during your postdoctoral research? Was that complicated?
Thanks, Dr. Laila. So actually, the Max Planck's, those who are not aware with the Max Planck system in Germany are, a lot of CSR labs we have around the country in India. So you can map it in relative sense in that. And the directors of the MPIs, which we call them, have a lot of powers to choose the right people. So when I was finishing my PhD in the US, and there was already a collaboration between Virginia Tech and Max Planck. So my committee member kind of recommended, why don't you go and work with Peter? He's the director at MPI. So we met in Vancouver for a math conference, and Peter came and we had a short interview there. And so it was relatively easy. Peter could see my work and my committee recommended, and he met me also, and then he offered me a position. So, it was the connections which eventually helped. I'm not sure if there's a standardized procedure for postdocs at MPI, but you can, of course, write to the respective director. And similarly, you can write to, the Fraunhofers if you want to go there, or the TU9s, or any German university that way. And of course, the standard fundings, which we are aware of, there's a Humboldt early career and experienced career, which I think Dr. Reddy already talked about. So I found the process was very relatively easy, and getting there and doing all the immigration things also didn't pose any challenge. So yeah, I had a great experience. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. My next question goes out to Dr. Somasundaram, and I wonder what kind of research support the SERB provides for young researchers. Dr. Somasundaram, I don't know if you can, you probably possibly have to unmute yourself. So I think there could be a technical problem. That's why I am directing the next question to Dr. Lasch. I wonder, what do applicants have to consider for an application at the DAAD, and how does one compose a strong application?
Thanks, Leila. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So what one has to consider in application for the program, and I think I can relate to this on a general level. First of all, we always request that you have a host institution, be it for an internship, be it for a master program, or you have to find your supervisor for your PhD. So it's up to you, and it's the first step in the progress or in the process to find your host in Germany, your host institution. So you have to choose where you want to go. The DAD will not offer you help with that regard, as we are the organization of 250 German universities, and we are not allowed to give any directions regarding certain universities. So it's up to you, and it's the first step in the process to find your institution. Secondly, when you apply for DD scholarship, take care that our application deadlines are pretty early. So we just finished the call for the PhD scholarships 20th of October this year for those who want to go to Germany starting next October. So it's a year-long process behind. So prepare in advance, have a look at the websites, and then go ahead, but don't wait too long. Very important is also your research project if you're talking about a PhD scholarship. So we are working with commissions, high-ranked commissions, and the commissions, besides, of course, academic records and academic qualification, has a look at the proposal, the research proposal you have been written. So this is one of the main criteria when we look into the application procedures. With other documents, with that comes along, of course, mark sheets. We would request a CV, so the common documents you would have to hand in. But my advice to everybody would be: select your institution carefully, select your host carefully, have a good letter of invitation. In best case, you develop the research proposal together with the German professor, but it's not a must. And really invest a lot of time in your research proposal, and in the case of the master scholarships, in your motivation letter. So the commission will look at this. These are the requirements you have to fulfill to apply for a DD scholarship. I've been also seen a question: what is the success rate of the projects submitted? Depends on the program, but the success rate is not as low as one would guess. So in the PhD program last year, the success rate has been around about 16%, which is quite a good success rate, just to answer maybe that question also from the chat. So takeaway message would be: select your host institution carefully, take your time in advance, start a year and a half earlier before you apply for a DD scholarship, and pay a lot of attention to your research proposal. Back to Leila.
Yes, and Leila would like to share a personal anecdote with this, because I would not be working in India today if it wasn't for the DAAD. In 2006, during my master's, they actually funded an internship in Varanasi for me, which is actually, this thing what made me study India in greater detail. So many thanks for that. And I would like to pose the next question to Dr. Ahuja again. How should your researchers in your field strike a balance between theory and application, with the latter having more funding options?
Right. Thanks, Dr. Laila. In fact, I owe a lot of this learning to Germany. And Professor Volker Meherman, who heads the math at TU Berlin, he kind of became my mentor post PhD, and he saw I was excited about doing theory, but I wanted to take it to the applications. And he said, couple, don't leave your theory and don't go too much on the application side, but you try to say that you're doing application driven research. So that what keeps the funding agency excited. And since theory is the foundation of everything, you should stick to that, but bring the application perspective. And this example kind of has paid dividends to me in a very long run. And I've been able to get my projects, although however theoretical they are, because I do see an application coming at the end. And one example I would like to cite is thanks to DAD, our IIT Indore, LU, Hanover, Leibniz University, Hanover partnership, where we recently got a project under the New Passage Through India program, where I'm the PI and also the lead for the computational science part. And just to give an example, me and my collaborator Thomas and Mark at Hanover, we are doing error estimation in modeling of non-Newtonian fluid flow. So the technical thing which you may understand, there's a lot of math being done in terms of error analysis, but this flow problems arise in a lot of middle heavy industries in mechanical, which Germany is known for, in fact India as well. And we could show the application there, and that is what made it a whole thing click. And our partners in Hanover, Dr. Barden and Dr. Ramanani, they kind of understood the whole thing. So I think, yeah, the keyword for there would be do application driven research, although you may not exactly do all of the application. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Lala. Back to you.
Many thanks to you again. I would like to include panel questions from the participants now, slowly. And there was a question about the Alexander von Humboldt fellowships. Is there an age limit for senior or postdoctoral researchers, Professor Reddy?
To the best of my knowledge, there is no age limit, but there is one thing. You can apply for a junior Humboldt Research Fellowship, just normal, we can say that, just a Humboldt Research Fellowship until you complete 4 years after PhD. That means that, you can apply for 4 years after completing PhD. Then you cannot apply, if you complete like 5 years ago your PhD, you cannot apply now. That is for Alexander von Humboldt Research Fellowship. But regarding the senior Humboldt, you can apply up to 12 years. 12 years after PhD you can apply. Otherwise, I did not come across through any age limit on their website, or I never came across through that one. There's no age limit. Basically, you need to be active research-wise. That's what the motto is.
Thanks a lot. I would like to address Dr. Somasundaram again. Can you hear me? And could you please answer the question if there are opportunities available for women in SERB for research funding?
Yeah. In fact, yes. See, gender dimension is very important for SERB as well as the government of India. And we know that just 30% of the world researchers are women, only 30%. And in fact, India is with 18.6% of Indian R&D, full-time R&D personnel are women. So it's such a very low number. So enhancement of participation, promotion of women in research for workforce is a prime priorities of the government. See, actually, this is where one has to act little more carefully, because we always discuss on research track record. In fact, we have to, in this case, has to move from research track record to research opportunity. See, career interruptions, especially related to caregiving responsibility, might not be reason to defer or deter the researchers to come back to the mainstream research. So, in fact, a number of research initiatives, in fact, looking at the women researchers, have been initiated by the Department of Science and Technology. There are women scientist scheme. There are recent Vigyan Jyoti. So then SERB is also running something called Women Excellence Award. See, and recently, and after all, we have seen that, a little more, in fact, efforts are required to, in fact, enhance the number of women researchers. So one of the things, in fact, I can highlight through this platform, because that call is open now. We call it SERB Power. Promoting power means promoting opportunities for women in exploratory research. In fact, this call is now open. SERB Power offers two types of streams to women researchers, exclusively for women researchers. One is Power Fellowships. See, in fact, women with excellent track record can, in fact, seek fellowships. We call it Power Fellowships from SERB. And the call is open. Call will be open till 31st December of this year. And the second one is Power Research Grant. So one is a fellowship, and this one is a research grant. And in fact, very modest funding is, you can ensure if you are engaged with. We didn't, in fact, differentiate between all areas of STEM. In fact, all areas of STEM, if you have good idea, SERB is there to, DST is there to help you. So please note, I just want to tell that this is a better opportunity that the Indian women scientists can use this opportunity. And there are special schemes, as I mentioned earlier. Vigyan Jyoti is one of the things which in fact enrolled into the educational system, where one has to ensure the feeder line. Women researchers, in fact, we have to also see the education system. So to make them to Women Jyoti has introduced this thing. Thereafter, when it comes to this R&D, SERB and DST has the specific schemes that I already mentioned. So back to Dr. Laila.
Thanks a lot. I had a question from Nepal, actually, for Dr. Katja Lash. The participant was wondering if there are any restrictions regarding the nationality of the application. So if he's eligible to apply, even if he's from another South Asian country.
Thanks, Leila, and yeah, good to see that we also have people from the region. So there is no for the region of South Asia, there is no restriction of nationality. So the office in Delhi is responsible for Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, and all our calls are open to the whole region. So there is no restriction for the application, and that holds true for most of the programs. We have small special programs for India, but it's for students in the field of engineering. But the PhD scholarship programs, the fellowships, the 3-month fellowships for senior scientists are open to all of the region. And we would love to see more applications from Nepal and Bangladesh. I have to say so. If you're interested, please connect, and yeah, go to the fair, connect to my colleagues. They are there to give you further advice on that.
There were some questions in the audience with regard to, funding amounts, what kinds of grants you are eligible for. I think that is a difficult. This is very difficult to answer, because I think all the funding schemes are different. But I would like to ask Professor Reddy if he could possibly tell us if the grant he received, if the Humboldt grants are sufficient to come to Germany and live there with a family and provide for it.
Dr. Laila, actually, basically, the Humboldt gives a good enough amount to the fellow. And also there is something called spousal allowance, and also children allowance, and also mobility allowance. So all these things are there. So you don't have to worry about funding at all. But as far as funding your research is concerned, as I mentioned, that the money, some money will be sent to the host also. That will be good enough for spending on the consumables and all. But of course, you cannot buy the equipment and all. So therefore, when you apply to Humboldt, you're writing a project. So the host has to give a certificate saying that all the equipment for conducting that research, which is proposed in the proposal, is available with the host institution. So that's what he needs to do. You cannot buy the equipment, and then you cannot do such kind of big ones, but the consumables will be certainly can be purchased by these funds, and then it's good enough money. In fact, most of the German hosts will be very happy to invite Humboldt fellows, because they get good money for consumables, etc. So that should not be a problem at all. In fact, the Humboldt Foundation also take the Humboldt fellow and the family for a tour of Germany, about like 14 days. So it's not like, you don't have to spend much money. In fact, in Germany, with the money that you get from Humboldt, you can live a really good life in Germany, with hiring a nice apartment, and then, you can afford it. You can lead a very good life, I can say. Yeah, Dr. Baila.
Thank you again. There was one tricky question from the audience regarding SERB funding. The person wants to know how fair the selection process is while reviewing all the proposals. I may possibly add, because this is actually a question that I noted, that I was also wondering what other qualifications you are looking for when selecting applicants. Are there other personal traits that are important apart from being brilliant as a researcher?
I think, yeah, that's a good question. In fact, see, when you fund a individual researcher, in fact, individual researcher in the normal precedents, we support through two ways. One is a projects-based system. See, a researcher is supported through projects, and second one is fellowships. See, when you talk about the projects, two aspects comes into the project itself, what kind of research you are going to take also comes into focus, in addition to the credentials of the investigator, the track record of the investigator. So when you talk about these projects-based funding, see, for example, what kind of project it is that? How good is the novelty embedded in that? What kind of objectives or how sharp it is there? What methodology you are using there? So several lot of questions about the project is being asked. And next question is that whether the track record of the investigator essentially tells that these kinds of problems can be taken by the investigator. So basically, see, this is a good question, because personal traits, when you talk about to what extent the personal traits influence the decision making. See, in fact, there are two components. One is there is an external peer review. The research proposals are being sent to different reviewers, and they are part of the society, and these reviewers take a decision. So to what extent the personal traits in fact get into the decision making, the reviewer's decision, I'm not sure really to what extent. But one thing I have noticed in my this peer review process is that whenever it comes to multidisciplinary projects, for example, a mathematician, of course, is good at mathematician, get involved with one of the health systems and are studying for a new area which he may not be much acquainted with that. So whenever we have a dialogue with these investigators, then what kind of openness that the gentleman is having to the new area, new suggestion from the committee, that I've seen that some personal traits, in fact, comes into play that whenever we deal with interdisciplinary project, especially that. Otherwise, it is not louder. The personal traits are not louder in terms of decision making in the case of projects and so I should say that in a project-based research funding system, maybe projects take a weightage of 60% and credentials of the track record of the investigator maybe 40%. So 60-40 is a ratio I just want to put in terms of what you call research funding is concerned. Whereas when you go to the fellowship, of course, in terms of fellowships, I can tell you that the credentials of the individual is what it matters. The research, of course, is a part, but the track record of the researcher tells more about what kind of support he will get from the community. Of course, the decision also taken by the research community. The entire evaluation process, as far as SARB is concerned, the reviewers are from the scientific community, the decision makers are from the scientific community. So it is one of the most fair decision process, and I don't think so any personal traits comes into picture in the case of fellowships. So that is a take. I just want to take from the SARB point of view, and in fellowships, I should say that the track record of the applicant has more, say 70 to 30%. I should say that 70% is the track record and the credentials of the investigator, and 30% goes to the kind of research he is going to take in the fellowship period. Thank you. Yeah, back to Dr. Laila.
One question seems to be very important for some of the participants, and that again goes to Dr. Katja Lasch. People are wondering if there are absolutely no PhD, post-PhD opportunities under the DAAD scheme.
Thanks, Sela, for the question. Not strictly no, but maybe I take it from the other side. There is a kind of division of duties in the German ecosystem. So the DAD is taking care of, as I said, students, master, PhDs. We have a lot of project funding also in place. Colleagues could give information on that. So we have having more than 90 projects at the moment funded in India, and then the AVH takes it up for the postdoctoral and the senior scientists. Nevertheless, we have a small funding scheme available. It's called Research Stays for scientists and researchers. It's a 3-month stay. This is aiming at that you go to Germany, meet your research partner, and maybe establish also a research cooperation. Here we have the call twice a year. The call is open now for the application deadline in April, and the second application deadline is October. The same holds true as for the other programs, that you have to have a host institution, and the research stay in this case is limited up to 3 months. So this is a smaller project we are funding, or smaller funding we have in place for postdocs, but not just for postdocs, also for senior scientists. So research stay for scientists and researchers is the program called. I also want to mention, as Dr. Samasundaram mentioned, the project cooperation and the cooperation projects. Of course, there's a lot of funding in cooperation projects at the moment. And Kapila Husha mentioned that they were successful in the application of one DAD project. So we are moving also a lot of people in these cooperation projects, but that would mean that you have a cooperation running, which is funded by the DAD. That's why I did not relate too much to that here. But I also want to mention, as we also have a couple of German participants here at the fair. We have a strong focus, of course, of bringing people from India to Germany. But if you want to invite a guest professor, for instance, or Leila mentioned she came with a fellowship to India of DAD. If you want to bring a postdoctoral students from Germany into India, so there's a couple of funding lines available for German students coming into the region of South Asia. So this is a nice opportunity if you have met at a conference, maybe a young postdoc, and you want to invite him to your institute. So there is also funding available with that regard, as I know that a lot of Indian institutions are looking at the moment also to increase their inbound mobility. So I just want to draw attention that we are not just working towards Germany, sondern we truly believe in a bilateral exchange and exchange on eye level. And that's why we are also providing a lot of funding for German students, even for German faculty to come to India, which is then also complementary to the GIAN scheme, for instance, run by PriceUp.
Thank you, Katja. And since we are now approaching the end of the panel, time passes always far too quick, isn't it? I would like to expand the topic a bit and not only talk about Indo-German funding possibilities, but actually about funding in transnational context. And I think Dr. Ahuja has a lot of experience in that field. And could you possibly tell us a bit more about how to obtain funding in a trans-country context with collaborators spanning multiple continents?
Thank you, Dr. Lasch. So, sorry, Dr. Laila. I actually wanted to add something which just Dr. Lasch, Katja Lasch mentioned, was that, I mentioned the Elio Hanover IIT Indore project, but I had the great support of DAD in going through this faculty exchange program twice in 14 to Braunschweig and then 18 to Dresden. So yes, there is, as Dr. Lash mentioned, there is funding beyond the students and others for faculty as well. Yes, coming to now this main question about the transnational thing. So, what I learned that, I have I have projects with US, UK, France, and Germany, active projects going on. And of course, the US system I knew because I kind of studied a lot there, and German because I had the strong link. And French in the UK kind of happened over the years. And what helps in doing this transnational projects is, besides you having your collaborator or the PI in the respective country, having visits, whether they visit you or you visit them, exploiting the Government of India programs or the respective country program, whether it's Gyan, Vaj, Spark, and so on and so forth, and organizing bilateral workshops and conferences helps you to understand the system of that country in a bilateral sense. For example, in the Indian context, there are 3 funding agencies which are established in a bilateral setting. One is the Indo-US is there, which is, the IUSSTF is there, Indo-US Science and Technology Forum, which is funded by our Department of Science and Technology and the respective ministry in the US, which I think is the Department of State there, rather than the National Science Foundation. When you come to the French, there is the CEFI-PRA Center, which is funded again by the French and the Indian. And the German, of course, we have, besides DAD, we have got the Indo-German Center in Gurgaon, which is IGSTC. So these are all bilateral centers, and when you connect with people, have workshops, collaborations, you get to know about the whole system. And another example which I would tell you about having this government to government meetings which happens, for example, our Prime Minister Modi had regular meetings with Chancellor Merkel or the German administration, and a lot of institutions come on board and you get a more open picture. And similarly with France, which had recently a lot of knowledge summits, one in India, one recently in France, we get to know their system, how their rules work, their funding agency works. So that helps you to adapt your application accordingly. I think what Dr. Praveen Sundaram rightly added, that the profile of the person plays 70% role, 30% is actual project, kind of stands in a lot of other places too. So yeah, so that's my take. I'll not take too much time. Back to you, Dr. Laila. Yeah.
There was another quite interesting question to Dr. Somasundaram. As a working woman professional, would the person be eligible to receive an SERB Power Fellowship?
Yeah, actually, this Power Fellowship is for women researchers working in institutions, in universities and national labs, and so this is only meant for working women. So these fellowships, as I told you, there is an age criteria. It is from 35 to 55. So that is a age, what do you call, that we are looking for. And the first condition I already told you, they should be in regular position in any one of these national labs or universities, or they should be working in any of these state government or private, or doesn't matter, but should be working. So that is that. And interestingly, the good number, the first year itself, we are thinking of granting around 25 fellowships. So that's why before March itself, this is a good opportunity for Indian women scientists to go for this fellowship. Okay, so this is actually another thing is that there is a personal fellowship that they can take in addition to their regular salary, and also there is a research support, and the hosting institution also gets some support from SERB. And that's Dr. Laila, please.
Many thanks again. There are actually a lot of questions for the SARB, but I think I would like to pose another general question that was asked from the audience. Maybe anyone knows of you if there are fellowships for early career researchers in India, Would someone like to come in and answer that and share their expertise with us?
That's it, because supporting to young scientists is one of the priorities of our government, especially SCRB, DST, and okay. It's nice that question has because that is a place. In fact, we have to invest more, investing in young minds. So basically, since that question has come, I just want to expand a little more on that concept of early career research support. See, one is we support in two ways. One is support at the doctoral studies, of course, not that much bigger, but we have two schemes for doctoral research support. One is we call it Prime Minister Fellowship for Doctoral Research. In fact, this is a very cute and interesting support scheme where Indian doctoral students are asked to align with industry and take up the research. Actually, take up the research on industry relevant programs and all. In fact, that scheme is going. It is going. The interesting part of this is that the researcher is getting double fellowship, one from the government and also one fellowship from the industry. And also there is a overseas visiting doctoral program. SCRB support doctoral students 6 to 12 months to go for. Right now we have only tie up with 2 foreign universities, and they can go up to 1 year and take some interesting research. We are giving an opportunity to give the doctoral student to see the world and set a priority for your research. That is one opportunity which is opened up. It is going on. And another thing is that there is a very popular scheme in India. It's a postdoctoral, and that scheme we call it National Postdoctoral Fellowship. This is a very interesting program. Lot of applicants we do get from Indian postdocs, and just now, yesterday itself, the result for 2020 has come out, and unfortunately, the competition is very high. We have close to 3,000 applications and around 270 fellowships only awarded. So it shows that just close to 10%. This shows that this award is very prestigious and very competitive, and the support is given for continuous support for 2 years. That is National Postdoctoral Fellowship, and substantial funding, in fact, is given for the one you said, that Early Career Research Award. We call right now a Startup Research Grant. Actually, it's one and the same. Earlier generation, we used to call it as Early Career Research Award. Now we call it as Startup Research Grant. So the young researchers are substantially supported. For 3 years, and most of these startup researchers are young scientists, and the scheme, in fact, helped them to build up a good lab. Of course, this is not infrastructure intensive. We say that, okay, take this research, make your research go forward. So that is what the motive of this thing. So startup research. And there is another one, core research support, though it is for all, but if you take the statistics on this core research support, we can see that 38 to 40% support is going to scientists fall in the 40 years of age group. So in terms of funding, lot of money, in fact, substantial research support is going into the young researchers. Yeah. Back to Dr. Laila.
Dr. Laila?
Yeah.
I just want to add a little bit to that question, if you have time.
Please, we have to do it very briefly because we're actually coming to an end, but please do share your insights as well.
Yeah, for early research, for example, if postdocs want to come to India, and start their career, there are also programs like UGC FRP program, and another one is DST Inspire Fellowship. So these two also can be, one should keep in mind about this. Yeah, Dr. Rai.
Many thanks to all of you. I shall convey from the DWIH staff that we will now make a break of 30 minutes, but the network lounge will remain open. Yes, let me thank all the panelists for their contributions here. I would also like to thank the German House for Research Innovation for this incredible event. I am really stunned by the technical possibilities that we now have during the current pandemic, so that we can still meet despite being limited in our mobility. I would also like to thank Dr. Jens Arndt from UB-Event, who was so professional prior to the event in briefing us in all the technical details here in this virtual fair. And I would like to thank, last but not least, you, the audience, because there were so many people here. We had over 500 viewers. Thanks a lot for joining and for being interested in Indo-German research opportunities. Thanks a lot.